Okay, well, happy Friday, folks. It is another one of those astonishing things. I sometimes just can't believe what people seem to think is okay. So today I was looking at the Podcast Business Journal, and I'm a big fan of the publication, and the folks behind it are very smart, responsible folks, and I respect them greatly. And this time they had an interview with a fellow named Micah Engel-Eshelman, who is the creator of an app, a podcast app that strips the ads from podcasts. And I get it. That sounds incredibly attractive. And I understand the instinct, but I just had to go live and talk about this because people are getting it wrong. Engel-Eshelman is getting it wrong and doesn't seem to understand. And it's quite apparent that he's never talked to a lawyer about what he's doing and never received the kinds of warnings and alerts about what goes on in copyright law and other areas of law like this. So what he's got is, and he says in his interview that what he's doing is downloading the audio, filtering, identifying those ads, and I guess he's giving the listener the option to skip ads or something like that. And so he's using algorithms to identify where the ads are and put a timestamp and then, skip over things and so on. And yeah, that's interesting. Maybe he's not actually altering the content itself, just giving users a tool. Just caught myself thinking about that. But it's pretty apparent that he didn't really think this through, because there have been a number of cases in the film and television arena where companies like Cleanflix and VidAngel and ClearPlay have popped up over the last few decades, where they purport to edit TV shows and movies and streams from Netflix and things like that. It started in DVDs, where they would get the DVD and they would create a new DVD with the objectionable material, language and nudity and sexuality or stuff that offended Christian values and those kind of things. Those would be removed from the film, and so the families could feel comfortable about sharing and watching these things together as a family and those kind of things. And the film industry and the Disney in particular sort of led the charge against some of these companies, saying, hey, look, that you're altering our stuff. And as far as I can tell, all of those companies were either defeated or driven into bankruptcy in court battles, or forced to change their business models in some radical ways. And maybe there's a couple of wrinkles here that we can look at. But, look, copyright law confers on owners of copyrights, that is, authors of original works that are in tangible form. If you create that, you own it, and you have the exclusive right to reproduce, distribute, perform, display, and make derivative works based on your work, or to authorize other people to do those things. So here, when he admits, I'm downloading the audio and then serving all users the same, my word, altered version of the audio. So when you do that, you're reproducing, the download is copying, the distribution is that new feed, and the derivative work, or the performance, is also the streaming of that, and the derivative work is the changing of the thing into something different from what the author created. So unless he has the permission to do those things, this is unauthorized use of these exclusive rights that an owner has, and that amounts to copyright infringement. And he says, look, once it's out there, it's on an RSS feed, all we're doing is grabbing it and changing it. Well, that's just not okay. Putting something up on an RSS feed does not give anybody the right other than to consume it, to perform it for personal consumption. You don't get to reproduce it, you don't get to alter it, you don't get to redistribute it unless you're giving permission or consent. And that's what you do when you sign up with Spotify or iHeart or whatever to carry your show on these platforms. You are giving them your consent. You actually, clicking yes on a terms of use kind of a thing. So when you do these things without that affirmative consent, that is infringement, plain and simple. I actually appeared on Pod News Weekly, I guess it was last week, in which I talked to Sam Sethi, and we were talking about the this notion that came from the head of AI over at Microsoft, suggesting, hey, once you put something on the web, it's in the public domain and fair use. And you know what? The bottom line, that is just not the case. That's not how it works. And there's plenty of case law and statutory law to support that. So the other thing is that the feed itself is a copyrightable work, a compilation or a collective work that contains all the episode content. Very much like a TV station puts a program, a day-long program together, compiling a bunch of shows into one program. That's a copyrighted work. You don't get to pull that and redo stuff with it. There was another case out of New York, I forget what the name of the company was, that was doing that. Look, by altering and removing the ads, you are making a derivative work. And if you're changing the content in any way, you're also passing off the show as something that it isn't. It no longer represents the work of the original creator. It's actually been altered, and the original creator has something to say about not representing it that way. This is the law of unfair competition. There was a case back in I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe mid 80s, where the American Broadcasting Company, ABC, got the rights from the BBC, which owned the television rights for Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But the BBC puts its ads at the beginning and the end of the program, and it doesn't break for commercials every 30 minutes or whatever. ABC broke up the film into segments and inserted commercials. And they did it sort of not automatically, but programmatically. They just said, okay, it's been 22 minutes, let's put an ad in, right? And in some cases, what that did was it actually put the advertisement in between the setup and the punchline of some of the jokes in the movie. So Terry Gilliam was the director of that group. He was part of the Monty Python group, and he was the director of the film. And he sued ABC, and he won on this unfair competition basis, claiming, hey, this is no longer the film I made, and my name is on it as the director. I'm the source, the author of the show. You don't get to do that. And it kind of changed the way television licenses are structured now. So, but even in that, there, a license is generally, and the agreements between directors and producers also. But here we have the author, the creator of the show, not necessarily giving any kind of consent. So here's my sort of takeaway from this, and I'm rethinking one component of it in a second. But if the AdBlock app that is created here is setting this up as something that podcast creators opt into, yes, go ahead, put my show on your platform, carry this without the ads. And he does have a plan to pay people from the monthly fees that he's charging his listeners or whatever. I don't exactly understand the business model. And I get the sense that he doesn't quite yet either, because this is all very new. But, if a podcaster is going to opt in and share in the revenue from that, okay, all good, no problem. And maybe if it's only deleting or altering the programmatic advertising, stuff that wasn't put there by the author, but is put there after the fact by the distributor, something like that. Well, maybe that's going to sneak through a loophole here. But otherwise, I think, unfortunately, it's only a matter of time before this fellow Engel Eshelman ends up hearing from lawyers. I don't have a dog in this fight, other than wanting to educate folks and keep everybody informed and safe from lawsuits and trouble. So creators, platforms, app developers, I want you to hear this and understand, so you know what the law is and some of the boundaries. But this is an interesting intellectual exercise. You see me chewing on this as I'm talking right now. Another thing that goes on with this is one area where maybe he is handling it within the boundaries of the law, and that is where he says, I got to find the email. The document itself. Let's see. He says, I'm just essentially sending the app a list of timings of where the ads are, and then recording whether the user actually skips the ad and charges them for it. So maybe he's not actually changing the feed itself. But it seems like he says he's downloading it and serving the content. So that's the violation there. But he may not be actually altering the audio file itself. He's just giving the app the information it needs to skip segments of the show automatically rather than forcing the user to push a 30-second jump button or something like that. So maybe there's a legal way to do it. And he says, if you have users using the app, you would be seeing fewer downloads of your show because they're coming from another place, but you'd be compensated. And in the conversation, he says, look, the user pays $4 a month, which buys 50 skips at a time. And half of that money will be set aside for the podcasters. So I guess the podcasters are going to have to opt in somehow in order to collect those fees. So what happens if you don't opt in? Do you just not get paid, but your show could still be ad skipped? Is an important question. So look, it's clear he's not doing this to make a lot of money. The revenue model at $4, $2 going to the podcast and again, divided up pro rata and all that, that's 4 cents an ad skip, 1 cent of which might be coming back his way. You got to really scale this thing big if he's going to do something. So, anyway, so I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this technology? I think it's certainly, I understand the desire to skip ads in podcasts, and I also understand the desire of podcasters to retain the integrity of the show they put together, including the ads content. If I do an ad read in an episode, I've made a conscious decision on what the read should be and where it should go in my episode and those kinds of things. It may not be a very thought through. I decided to do it. Period. I shouldn't be second guessed by an app. I shouldn't be second guessed by anybody but the end user. If you want to skip forward on my show, fine, go ahead. But the ads I put there for a reason. At least you should know at least that the ad's there, and not just be able to tell your app, don't show any ads. Okay. Anyway, that's my bottom line. I would love to hear from folks out there. If you are watching live, I'd love to hear from you with your comments. Let me see if I can get the comment screen open. Diane, hello. You say, I've got a couple of good t-shirt ideas. How do I protect them? Is that a trademark? Trademarks are expensive. Yes, Diane, they are in fact expensive. But that would be the way to go about it. Trademark law can protect a slogan or a phrase or something like that if it is used as a trademark. One of the things that we encounter when we register trademarks for things like a t-shirt with a slogan on it or something is the question of, is that the brand identifier or is that merely an ornamental use? So we would go in, you can go in and look at how other slogans have been registered when they show up on t-shirts and things. But normally when we talk about a trademark for a piece of apparel, we're actually talking about the brand, the identifier that's on the tag inside the shirt, or sometimes the little alligator or polo player or whatever, that's a brand identifier. You know what company that's coming from. But if it's I just said no or something weird, I don't know what your expression, but a slogan like that might not really be the brand. It's not I said no brand merchandise. It's a Hanes t-shirt. There's the brand with a logo printed on it. So that's, yeah. So funny sayings, again, each one it might be registrable. It's something to talk about, but I would say, Diane, look, you can get a copyright for the design of the way you put that on the t-shirt. If you choose interesting colors and mess with typefaces and the shape of things and so on, there might be a copyrightable original design that you can protect, but it would only protect against copying the design, not the actual words of the phrase or of the saying. But anyway, it is doable. It's something you and I could talk about offline and privately if you'd like to explore that. But as you said, yeah, the cost of registering a trademark is a significant one, and you better have a pretty good sense you're going to sell a lot of t-shirts if you're going to do this. So thank you for that. Good question. Good question. Anyway, I'm going to sign off now. I just wanted to rant for a few minutes about this ad block thing, and I guess I'll I'll come back again and see you at my normally scheduled time next Thursday afternoon. I think I'm probably going to do another Entertainment Law Asked and Answered sometime early next week as well. So that's it for tonight. I'll see you soon. Thanks for being with me.